Oh boy, a new Bakugan game that everyone's playing. I can't wait to try it out myself and see what all the hype's about. Oh yeah, I'm a little late, aren't I? Yeah, I'm a little tardy to the party with the whole Baku Project thing. Back when the game first came out, I didn't even have a PC for me to actually try it out with. And once I did get my PC, it seemed that there was a lack of new content. So I was hoping to wait until another fresh batch of content came out for me to try with everyone else and sort of get the new experience that everyone else is experiencing at the same time. But since then, there still hasn't been any update, and I kind of wanted to try it out myself and give my own review of it. I mean, I am a Bakugan YouTuber. I do check out pretty much anything Bakugan that I can. And considering Baku Project's like the biggest fan game that has ever came up from the Bakugan community, I feel like it would make sense if I didn't try it out at all. I'm not trying to make it seem like this whole video is just about how the game hasn't gotten any new content in a very long time. It's more so that I wanted to try out the content that is there and review right now. So I went ahead and did that. I played the game for a very long time. I grinded out enough to have a deck in each attribute, and I've used each of those decks a good amount of times, so I have a general feeling of pretty much all the content the game has. Of course, I haven't tried everything, but I feel like I have enough to where I can give a review of what the state of the game is right now. Not that I think the game needs anyone to review it at the moment. Again, the whole game seems like it's been fairly stagnant for a while, so whatever review that happened back then is probably going to look the exact same as whatever I say. But like I said before, back when the game first came out and everyone was playing it, had no way of actually playing it myself, and I still feel like I should make a video of it, just seeing that it's the biggest fan game for Bakugan that has ever been made. This video is going to be a less edited video than I typically do. It's just going to be me talking with some pre-recorded gameplay in the background. And before I do get into reviewing it, I want to make a lot of things very clear. No matter what I say about the game, whether I like a part of it that you like or not, whether I like the entire game or not, should not affect how you enjoy the game if you do enjoy it. This is not supposed to be something where I'm just putting down another game that is for Bakugan, as I feel like some people might think this is a way for me to put down another game and promote my own, which is not the case at all. This is not going to be a purely negative review. I do have good things to say about the game, even if it's not something I could see myself playing for a very, very long time. Because even before any of that, I am a Bakugan fan, and I have made Bakugan content for a long time, and I feel like I should still review Bakugan content. Me having affiliation with another game has nothing to do with this video at all. In fact, I won't even be mentioning it past this. My bottom line is that since the franchise has been in complete stasis for a long time because of the owners of the franchise being kind of stupid, I think any way that people can enjoy the franchise is a good thing. So if your way of enjoying the franchise is playing Baku Project, that's amazing. I think that's fabulous. If you can still enjoy Bakugan, I don't care how you do it at all. On a similar note, I know some people will probably ask about if I'm going to try out other fan games. As with my last Baku Project video, I got plenty of people talking about Bloxugon specifically. The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I've already been trying out Bloxugon for a bit, but what makes me hesitate to make a video on it is that it's in a very early state, along with a lot of other fan games out there. Like just in the past month, I think two new fan games came out that people were talking about, and they are also in very early access. So unlike with Baku Project, where the game's been out for a long enough time where people have their own opinions on it, and I want to throw in my own opinion of it, uh, those other fan games haven't been out for as nearly a long time and are not in the state that Baku Project is. You know, there might be some things that other games do better than Project, but the bottom line is I think Project has more content to it currently, and I feel like the game has been out long enough to where I don't have to worry about being too judgmental early on. If an update does come out for Baku Project, I'll for sure relook at it, but as it stands right now, it's been out for a very long time with no new content to the point where I feel it's completely fair to look at the game at the state it is right now. Where with other games, I'm not too sure if I will make reviews on it, but I might still make videos on it, who knows. So if you want to see videos on other fan games, let me know. I definitely can, and again, I have been trying them out, but I don't know if I'll do a review like this, because again, they're in very early access. I wouldn't want to judge a book by the first couple of pages when the rest of the book's not done, you know? If those games ever get into a state where I feel like they are more content complete and are ready to actually be reviewed, then I will for sure do that. Just at the moment, none of those games seem to be. Anyway, we should probably get on to the actual subject, which is Baku Project. If you somehow don't know what Baku Project is, it's a fan game that has its own battle system compared to the IRL game or even the Battle Brawlers console game. And similarly to those games, in Baku Project, you have Bakugan, you have abilities, and you have gate cards. You place down gate cards on the field, you place Bakugan on those gate cards, and you use your abilities to win battles, and whoever has the last Bakugan standing wins. But this is different from the IRL game and the console game because instead of winning gates, you win battles and defeat your opponent's Bakugan, which is how it was in the anime. It makes it to where Bakugan are an actual resource. I much prefer how they did it in the anime for sure. So this is definitely a change that I welcome. Although in this format that Baku Project does, it's not always the perfect replacement for the gates. There's also a shop where you could spend HSP that you win after battles. There's NPCs that you could grind against and fight against, and if you don't want to fight against other people, that's typically how you get all your money to then buy the shop. Not only do you get money from winning battles, you also get XP from those battles. Well, you get both either way, but you get a lot more from winning. And for PvP, of course, there's PvP. There's 1v1, 2v2, and even 3v3. There's also some sort of like team option in Baku Project where you make teams. I don't really know how that works or what it does, but it's there, I guess. There's also some customization when you first make your character. It's not amazing or super in depth. It's okay enough unless you pick a female character, in which case you're just kind of cooked. This is one of those things where it's like not technically that important, but I also think it's really important at the same time. So definitely something I would say needs some work. There's also some tournaments that are held in game and also through the Discord server. Uh, the Discord server tournaments, I'm sure, just work how most tournaments work. The ones actually held in game, I'm not too sure about because I've seen that sometimes NPCs are a part of it, and I don't know why. I really want to know if there's been a time where an NPC won one of those tournaments. That'd certainly be a thing. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the game. You fight, you buy stuff, you level those up, and you can fight other people as well. Now actually going in depth and giving my thoughts on more intricate mechanics of the game. Everything is pretty standard from what you could expect from a fan game that's based on the anime. You set gate cards, you throw a Bakugan, and you fight. Most of that is pretty standard. Throwing Bakugan down onto gate cards and waiting for the opponent to either go on there or going to your opponent's Bakugan themselves. It's very similar to pretty much any Bakugan game that uses gate cards. But I'm hitting you with a cold water right away. This is probably going to be the either one of the hottest takes or one of the most coldest takes I have for this game. Mainly because I definitely see the argument where this is kind of a pointless reason to have a gripe with the game. But coming from someone who pretty much really likes the franchise just because of the toys, like I think the anime is cool, I think the monsters are cool, whatever, but the toys are what really drew me in. The fact that there's not actually rolling in the game is probably the thing that holds it back the most from being something I enjoy regularly. And this is not something exclusive to any a game in particular. It's mainly just the actual franchise itself. The whole franchise was built around the toys and the physicality of rolling your Bakugan onto gate cards or whatever you roll them onto. In a Baku project, you just click on gate cards and the Bakugan gets placed there and it becomes the monster, which is fine. I get it. It's simple. You don't need the rolling. There's no point for it, especially when it's more focused on the actual cards themselves. I completely understand that. It's just me personally, the IRL game and the console game, the charm, a lot of the charm came from the rolling. Even if the console game was like, a little less than realistic. I mean, you could straight up control your Bakugan and make them do the craziest maneuvers ever. But even the IRL game of just lining up a shot, rolling your Bakugan, and standing on a gate card was just so satisfying, especially being that you can actually interact with those toys. Of course, that's comparing real life to a video game. I know I'm not going to get the same sensation of rolling a Bakugan and seeing it open. It's still something that I feel like the franchise was so heavily built around. It feels weird playing a Bakugan game without it. But again, that's completely just a me thing, I feel. I can totally understand why people would enjoy the game without it. It's not something it needs, but just placing Bakugan with no actual toy action is something I kind of miss while playing the game. It's like sort of that thing where, like in the anime, people always say, oh, season one's so great because you watch it and you want to go play the game. It's like, yeah, I go play the game, but then I get it to actually roll the Bakugan as well. It's not just the, oh, I'm going to do my strategy and beat my opponent with that. It's like, no, I also have to roll. I also have to be good at something else. And that adds something to the anime that it doesn't have. And I totally agree with the sentiment that the IRL game was nowhere near as cool or interesting as the anime game. But at least, at the very least, it was more interesting that there's a skill check mechanic built into the game. That never really mattered in the first season of anime, and I'm pretty sure none of the seasons actually, except for that time where Shun missed his throw because he was being a bitch boy over his dead mom or whatever. But anyway, that's completely off topic now. Past the rolling, the main gameplay pretty much looks the same. However, there is one big difference between this game and the IRL game or console game that the whole game is built around, and that's the deck size. In Baku Project, you have 20 abilities and 10 gate cards. The IRL game, you only got 3 of each. And while it made sense there, being that they wanted the deck size to be small so games are quick and snappy, the extension of the deck size in Baku Project makes it to where it's not just having the right combo of cards at all times, because there's also a draw system integrated with the deck size. You don't just have them all in your hand like in the IRL game. So it's kind of balance around the idea of having a bigger deck and drawing these cards. For the most part, I have no issue with this. I have no problem with games that don't just straight up copy what other games have done before, especially the official ones. If a game wants to increase their deck size or make it a certain size and have the actual resource management be different, then completely fine. I think trying out new things for the franchise is perfectly valid, and I could definitely see why people like it. Inherently, there's no problems with this system. There are a couple problems that you could run into while deck building that make it feel a little worse, but I'll get into that in a second. But going on to actual resource management, playing cards pretty much doesn't have a resource to it. You can kind of just play cards whenever. You can play cards whenever, you can play as many as you want, as long as the Bakugan either matches the attribute or is the Bakugan listed on the card, you could just play it. A lot of card games do have a secondary resource management system to make it to where the very strong effects are more costly to balance out the fact that they are better. And here, that's not really the case. If you get all your great cards immediately, you could really just roll the opponent. Like, there's nothing stopping you, you know? Like, I guess I could also compare the game to the Gen 2 TCG, since that actually was a more proper deck builder. In that game, of course, there's energy, and you need to preserve energy to play your big cards, or play multiple cards in quick succession. But in here, there's no need for that. As long as you draw the card that you really need, then you're in a good spot, pretty much. That kind of makes the game feel like a just back and forth, you play an ability, I play an ability, you play an ability, I play an ability, a good amount of the time. Now, of course, people will say, well, the abilities themselves are resources. If you burn all your abilities, then who cares how many you use? And while that is true, it's more hard to gauge what the opponent has at their disposal and what they don't when there's not an energy system that you could visibly see. In most TCGs, once again take the Gen 2 TCG, you could see how much the resource they have to actually play cards, just straight up. You could see how much energy they have and if you need to actually burn abilities or not. So you have no idea if you have zero idea if playing an ability actually does anything to help progress the resource battle that your opponent are having, which is not foreign to card games, of course. Like you're never going to know what the opponent has and if you can beat them with what you have in your hand. But that secondary resource to manage that is visible to your opponent is one of those balancing factors that makes it easier to make decisions without it feeling just like we're going to have a back-to-back card battle and whoever has the better cards wins, which is sometimes what the game feels like. This isn't all battles. This is mainly the ones where a player just has a bunch of like really standard good cards that they could just rip whenever. Like there are strategies and decks that will not want to just play abilities and will instead want to set up to be in a better position for later to the point where they don't have to burn a bunch of resources. But that's a very minute amount of decks, in my opinion. Now, I'm saying all this even though I don't know what a solution would be. Like, I don't know how you would add a secondary resource to this to make it work. My only thought would be to, like, I don't know, have a passive energy system, which isn't always the most fun. That like everyone has the same resource as the time goes on. Um, it's not a great solution. My other idea was that cards can only be played at a certain time. So weaker cards can be played earlier, while stronger cards need time to allow you to actually play. Again, I don't know. I wouldn't have any way of telling you how that would be implemented to the game like this. I mean, you'll really mainly see this in like the attributes like Ventus or Pyrus, which just have so many cards they could use whenever and have no problem using it, or strategies that are built around just getting a bunch of cards to then just start playing. That's when it gets the most egregious. It kind of feels like in Dragon Ball when they have a beam struggle that goes on for way longer than you want it to, and it just gets really boring, especially after the 10th time they've done it. Like to some people, that's cool and all. People like seeing that stuff, and if you do, more power to you. But I also do think it's completely fine to have a conversation that, maybe having a way to fix that from happening all the time would be nice. Another thing that is a part of Baku Project is the concept of gate advantage. At least I think that's what they call it. In a nutshell, this is supposed to be a system to make sure that whatever player hasn't been able to use their gate cards in the battle yet gets to use it later on. As when all Bakugan are on the field, whoever has the least amount of gate cards on the field has one of their Bakugan pulled to another player's Bakugan, or an opposing player's Bakugan, I should say, which then gives that player the ability to use their gate card. This as a concept is fine. There's no retracting in the game, so you can't take back a Bakugan to put it somewhere else to then go aggressive. So once all your Bakugan are on the field, they're just kind of stuck there until this gate advantage thing happens. It's supposed to be a workaround with that as well, and that is fine, except for the part where I believe if it's tied between gate cards, it's just random. Personally, I don't really like when card games have too much randomness in it. There will always be the randomness of getting a bad starting hand. Of course, that's not something I will be complaining about. That's just something in all card games. This specific scenario is something that I do have a small bit of gripe with. I could be wrong. There could be some kind of player priority where, like, the player who goes first gets their Balkan pulled or whatever, which honestly would make it worse, in my opinion. I think if the gate cards on the field are tied, there should be some kind of alternative method that they use to determine who gets pulled. So then you can actually have control over it, opposed to just, well, tied on gate cards. Let's see who gets unlucky. But as a general concept, I'm completely fine with this, and I'm fine that it's implemented this way. I do still kind of wish there was retracting to instead let you pick who gets thrown onto or placed onto the opponent's gate card if you know that a pull is going to happen. But it's probably not the easiest to balance with the type of gameplay they're going for. Now on to card effects. Like I said before, this game is primarily based around the anime, specifically season 1. Although I believe there was also a small push to make it also a mixture of season 2 with how many cards you get. I'm not sure the entire way it used to work, but I do know once they added New Vestroya that the game system changed a good bit. But besides the point, it's based around the anime, and a lot of the card effects are also based off the anime. The ones that we've seen in the show work pretty much exactly the same. Fire tornado, it transfers 100. Grand down, it nullifies a gate card. Blow away moves a guy, and so on and so forth. There's not too many cards that were from the anime of season 1 that are changed that actually did have an effect. At least not from what I could tell. But the ones that didn't have effects, or even the ones from New Australia that had to be reversed, because obviously New Australia completely dumbed it down and just made all the cards pretty much the same. All those had to be changed. And honestly, most of the cards that they had to make completely new effects for are pretty good in my opinion. Honestly, a lot of the anime accurate cards that are just really bad in the anime that are also bad here are the ones I mainly have gripes with. I'm not a big fan of the idea that some cards don't do anything because they weren't very good in the show. Like for instance, Firewall, it's just not a very good card in the anime or in the game. I would like if it got reworked in some way to where it actually has a use, but we'll go into the actual balance of the cards in a bit. Now, some people have the opinion that for a lot of the new Australia cards that they added, it's kind of going off the rails. Some of them are just super crazy and super outlandish for the game. And honestly, I couldn't disagree more. I like all the cards that are really interesting effect-wise, and I do think the cards that are more closer to what an anime effect would be, being just a G power change or just a G power change plus a negate, those are pretty boring, and I'm glad that that's not every single card. Now, it is a lot of cards, to be fair, but the ones that aren't like that are some of my favorites. For instance, Subterra Nemesis has Corona Hole, which makes you select a slot on the field, a gate card slot on the field, and if an opponent puts a gate card on that slot, it is turned into a plus 400 Subterra gate card. This has a little bit of gripes with it, mainly being that you can't see afterwards where you put it, but like the effect and idea itself is really cool. I like it. Uh, now there's some argument to be made where these outlandish effects makes it feel less competitively tight, and there's just too many weird, wacky effects to make it actually an actual game that has competitive integrity, but I think that's okay. I don't think every game needs to be incredibly competitive. I think it's fine if a lot of the effects in the game are different and not just straight G boosts. I mean, those are pretty much the cards that I wanted to build into the most when I saw cards for the game. Corona Hole is the one I use for Subterra. In Darkest, I use Ingram, who has a really cool clone gimmick. In Aquos, I shit my pants and cry because that attribute's a complete dog shit. And in Ventus, I went for a weird like control mixture deck that had a lot of interesting cards in it. And those decks were fun, except the Aquos one. Those cards that made it unique and fun were my favorites in the game. If you want a more competitively tight game, I understand that completely. If you want cards that are more streamlined and want more sense behind the concept behind it to fit more of a unified concept for a game, that the anime sort of alluded to with most of the cards being G boost, then I understand that. However, I don't think the game needs to exactly do that. And in fact, I kind of disagree with the notion that that was all the anime was, that it was just straight up numbers boost. We saw a good amount of the strategies that were just completely wild and weird and cool at the same time that weren't just with G boosts. I mean, one of the most iconic cards in the series was Tsunami Wave. That card was sick as fuck. It's not real in this game, which is a funny thing that I'll come back to later. But it was very cool in the anime. And it wasn't just a G boost change, it was a strategy based around setting up all your Bakugan on the field. And if your opponent doesn't take out your Bakugan early, you get to wipe out the entire field. It was sweet. And the stuff with like Dan using Ryo's Mind Ghost against him using Marionette by moving his Bakugan onto that Gate card to then blow them up. That was some of the sickest shit I've ever seen. When the anime had moments where it's just I play a card that gives me cheese, but I then the opponent plays a card that has gives even more cheese. Oh my god, I fucking lose. That sucked. It really did. Now, of course, since G power is a very important mechanic and winning battles is revolved around G power, you're gonna have a lot of strategies like that. That completely makes sense. But I have seen people have the opinion that some Baku Project cards are overzealous and sort of too wild for a game like this. And I just don't agree with that opinion. Now, I'm not saying that all the cards in the game are perfect or whatever. You know, there's plenty of them that are just completely dog shit. There's some that are just way too overpowered. Like, the game isn't inherently balanced. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I am saying that I don't think that the weird card ideas that were implemented in the game were a bad play. And I think that's a weird thing I've seen with a lot of Bakugan fan games is that there's some people who have a very strict idea of what they want a game to be, and if a fan game deviates from that idea they have, they immediately dismiss it and don't like it. At the end of the day, this is someone else's game that they're making with their own vision. And if someone wants their game to look a specific way, I don't think we have any right to say, well, it's not how I wanted the game to be, or it's not how I imagined it to be, so it must be bad. Again, it's okay to have that opinion, want a game that's more akin to what your idea of a Bakugan fan game should be. But if a game like Baku Project isn't like that, I don't think it should be something that you hold against it. It's their game, they're going to make it how they want. If they want certain card effects, if they want to be a little more wacky with it, then it's all in their right to do so. Now, of course, most of these card effects are the signatures that are Bakugan specific. especially from the NV side of things. And signatures inherently are weird in Baku Project because they're locked to specific Bakugan. If your Bakugan dies and you draw that card later, or even if it's in your hand, it's now a dead card. So having too many signatures in your deck is not a good thing because then if you're reliant on a Bakugan too much and you draw those cards, then you would much rather have a card that you can use with your other Bakugan that are still alive. Or even worse, you're in a fight and you only have cards for one of your Bakugan that is not in that fight. Of course, this is sort of just a skill curve with the game's deck building and how to actually be good at it, but sometimes it does feel more limiting. For instance, Ingram, if you use all of his cards in Darkest, you're gonna have five of his cards. Using less than that kind of makes him feel bad. You kind of want all of them to be able to make full use of Ingram. But it comes with the downside of, well, if Ingram dies, you're screwed because you have so many of his cards in your deck. Although Darkest is based Assault, which kind of ruins that entire thing. But just pretend like it doesn't exist for a second. So now I am sort of punished for wanting to use my Ingram to the full capacity because the deck system and having to draw cards and the reliance on RNG to draw the right cards is directly against my want to use Ingram. Now, of course, I could only have Ingram signatures and then have the rest normals, so that if Ingram dies, I have more chance of just drawing normals instead of the Ingram cards that would then be dead cards. But me personally, I'd like if each of my Pokemon had an actual purpose and having their own signature in my deck, which when paired with Ingram, it makes it more difficult because then I just kind of want to make sure those Pokemon only have like one signature max to then balance out the ratio of normals to signatures so I don't just get completely ruined if one of my Bakugan die. Now, there's no real way to fix this, and again, it's one of those things where I'm not saying it explicitly needs to. I can still have an issue with something even if I recognize it doesn't directly need to be fixed. It's just one of those gripes with the game that make it feel more clunky than I think it should be. However, this whole point actually leads into my next topic, which is the overall balance of the game. Like I said before, if that Bakugan is dead, then you can't use their signature. Those become dead cards. It's very bad for you. Or if they're not the ones in the battle and their cards need them to be in the battle to be useful, then that's also very bad for you. This means that there's a really solidified list of Bakugan that are commonly accepted as the best. This is because you'll never run into that problem where they're not in the battle, so then their card can't work. These Bakugan being stuff like Wilda, Neo, Harpus, Vulcan, Dynamo, stuff like that. These Bakugan have cards that they don't need to be in battles for while still bringing crazy value. And really, if people want to be optimal, these are the Bakugan they're typically going to run. All these Bakugan can provide support from afar, and some of them can even get themselves out of situations if they want to. Harpus being the most egregious, she kind of just jumps in and out of battles whenever she wants. You can never really catch her as long as she has an ability. And if she does have an ability and you don't attack her in the first place, then you're just going to get jumped. Now, there's always going to be some kind of meta in any game that you play. It's not surprising to me that that there is like meta Bakugan in this game. What is surprising to me is how this meta came to be. Pretty much all of those Bakugan became meta because of the core concepts of the game, and play around those core concepts much better than other Bakugan can. For instance, the gate advantage mechanic, Wilda can completely bypass that with its ability. Not only that, it provides great support for your other Bakugan if they get in danger, or even itself if it gets in danger. Crazy versatile in any situation. And Vulcan or Neo can provide support from anywhere. Their cards are just super solid all around. You're pretty much never going to be in a game where you wish you didn't have either or in your deck. Dynamo being able to bypass the draw mechanic by just getting you a card, any card you want, your best card in your entire deck, you could just grab. You basically have more chances in your deck when you're running Dynamo to get the very important card in your deck. It also sort of cuts down your deck in a way, while also even making it better. Because as long as you have Dynamo, you'll have access to those cards at pretty much any time as long as you have his card. And then Harpus could go in or out of battles as well to either help your other Bakugan or keep yourself safe. so her cards are always good as well. It's just interesting to me how these Bakugan became meta because they don't interact with the game the same way all the other Bakugan do. They can bypass some of these balance factors that are put into the game, or maybe not even balance factors, maybe just mechanics just to make the game function. But either way, they go around these factors to make sure that they're not hindered by it too much, which makes them so good. Again, I'm not going to say that it having a meta is a bad thing. Any game will have that, even if people don't think there is. There's always going to be some kind of meta. I just simply find it fascinating how the meta Bakugan became so good. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we could talk about how there's so many things that are completely bad in this game, namely the Aquos attribute. But that's a rant that I don't think any of you people are ready for. I want to, I like really want to crash out about how bad Aquos is in Baku Project, but I think I'll try to refrain from doing that. But yeah, obviously there's some Bakugan and attributes that are really struggling in this game, like really struggling. Namely, all the generics and all pretty much all the Bakugan from season one. Since those were unchanged, they still have those very mid effects that they did from the anime, while the new Destroyer guys got completely revamped cards that are more based around the tippity top of season one. So anything that wasn't as good as that is just stuck as being anime accurate and very bad. I guess I forgot to mention that too, but you can run multiple guardians in this game if you want to. You don't have to run generics. Which, that's true for the IRL game and I believe the console game as well. But in those games, it didn't really matter because in the IRL game, at least, the G power randomized. So you might have a generic Bakugan that has more Gs than a Guardian. And for the most part, they didn't have cards specific to a Bakugan that were much better on Guardians than someone else. So you were pretty much fine using any combination of Bakugan you wanted because, the cards aren't specific to Bakugan. They're just generally good. Really, you just wanted the highest G power Bakugan, which could be generics. In Baku Project, that could also be the case. I mean, you could grind out a generic to max level and have it be completely broken crazy, but that's usually going to be suboptimal because you could just do that with a Guardian who has a really good card. So the generics are just kind of there. I mean, I'm not entirely against the idea of having multiple Guardians in a deck. I think it's fine-ish. But then I'd also like to see some support for the generic Bakugan as well. Like in some way, shape, or form at least, because it really doesn't feel great that a lot of the Bakugan in the game are just not good. And we're not even just talking about generics, really. I mean, there's a lot of Guardians that are very bad as well. I mean, Gorm has a really shit ability, so does Skyrus. Their abilities are just really bad. They're worse than most attribute normals. Not all of them are complete losers. Like Tigreau is very good. Leonidas and Gladiator are pretty decent as well. But I definitely don't think they compare it to any of the new Shoya guys. So I would like a little more balance between seasons as well. Although maybe they're just trying to be anime accurate in the way that season one just gets completely mugged by the future seasons because there was no need to actually balance them around each other because all they cared about was making the next season even more crazy and big numbers than the last. I haven't even talked about the elephant in the room, which is Project Ventus. I I I don't even know how to tackle that topic. Ventus in Project is possibly one of the most disgustingly broken things I've seen in a video game in a very long time. And this is purely because of how good all their normals are. Like, you know how I said that signatures aren't always the best because they become dead cards if you don't have the Bakugan anymore because it died? Well, in Ventus, you don't need to worry about that. You can just run a whole deck of normals because all the Ventus normals are so incredibly good. They're pretty much all helpful all the time, no matter what. Like, we're not even talking like Brawl Meta Knight kinds of overpowered. Like, it's beyond that somehow. At least in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, I've seen other people say it's broken. Maybe it's not actually as broken as I'm making out to be, but it's by far the best attribute. I think I even heard people say they want a tournament hosted where there's no Ventus because it's just that good. And it's funny because I said I wasn't gonna talk about Aquos. I lied. It's funny because in Aquos, they only really have two, maybe three good normals. So you are heavily reliant on using Bakugan with good signatures. Because if you don't, your normals are not going to be able to support you. And not only that, if you lose your Bakugan that have those good signatures, you're not going to be able to live with just the normals because they're not very good. Like it has Dive Mirage, sure, it's very good for sure, and it has Water Refrain, which I still think it's weird that it's the only ability negate that Aqua's has, especially when it's not actually that good. Because something I also didn't explain in this game, um, the the chain sequence and putting stuff on the stack is weird. Some cards do get put on the stack, meaning that you could respond to them before they happen, and some don't. From what I can understand, uh, if it changes G power, it's instant and you can't respond to it. And then if it's not, you can. I think that's how it works. Keeping that in mind, Water Refrain only works on cards that are put onto the stack. If a card just buffs G power and is instant, you can't Water Refrain it. For pretty much any other ability negate, especially the normals from like that Darkest and Chaos have, you are very much free to negate those. They negate them even if they were instant, at least from what I could tell. For some reason, Water Refrain doesn't. It's just not the best negate ever. Like, it's a fine negate, it's not great. But yeah, beyond that, like, the other cards that Aquos have is like delayed gratification. That seems to be the theme with Aquos in this game. And that's just not very good in an attribute where your other normals are so bad that if you don't get your signatures and the opponent gets some good cards, they could just run you down. So the attribute that relies on signatures a lot is incredibly stupidly bad, while this attribute that doesn't need signatures at all to be good is very, very fucking good. Which is like sort of my main like problem with how signatures work in this game. Again, I don't know how you would change it. It's more that I think Aquos and Ventus just need to be changed fundamentally. Again, it's just another byproduct of how the game is designed. Honestly, a lot of issues from the game feel like just byproducts of decisions that were previously made and talked about and been discussed and discovered, and then later down the road you find out, wait, that means this is either really bad or this is really good. I guess in that sort of way, it makes it seem like the game wasn't made with too much foresight in a way. But again, I don't know. I don't know the person who made this game. I don't know if this is how they wanted it to be. But if it is, I hope they realize that the way they want it to be makes some things completely clunky or bad or good just because of some decisions they made beforehand. So that's my opinion on the general gameplay, the more intricate mechanics of how the battling actually works. And I could give a few of my opinions on the other stuff, I suppose. The shop isn't the worst shop I've ever seen. It's not the best, but it rotates fairly frequently. Not only that, but it's a universal shop. So if someone buys a card that you didn't want, it has a chance of replacing a card that, or it has a chance of being replaced by a card that you do want. But this, of course, has the problem where some people might want the card you want, and they might buy it before you get to get it yourself. Which leads to a very funny thing that I heard was a problem in the game, where people would scalp the fucking cards in the shop and then sell it for way higher than they're worth. So if you wanted a card that you needed for your deck, you would need to buy it on the secondhand market. I don't care if it's real life or in a video game, scalpers fucking suck. So that's like the main disadvantage of the shop that I see. I guess another thing I could talk about is that the Bakugan for some reason are randomly priced, unlike the cards and other things. Like those all have set prices, but not Bakugan, which I don't think is really a bad thing. That because you might get a Bakugan for way cheaper than it's worth, and that'd be pretty cool. That feels good. But then you might see a Bakugan you really need. It's like 20 times what it should be worth, and you're like, man, that blows ass. I don't know if I want to waste all this money on it or just wait to see if I get lucky and get one for cheaper. Oh, also, Bakugan start with random base G power in the shop. I think it's kind of weird, but it's not the worst, I guess. And then next, the NPCs. Honestly, I think this is another thing that I also have a pretty big problem with. The NPCs, while there are a decent amount of them, there's no difference between them other than difficulty. And what mean by that is that you can fight one NPC, beat them, and then go fight a different NPC that's way harder and get the exact same rewards as the first NPC. I don't really know why there isn't a reason to actually fight the harder NPCs for either more money or more XP. It doesn't exactly make sense to me. That feels like the easiest no-brainer thing that should ever be done. Typically, as things get harder, the more rewards you get. That's just like basic game logic. I don't know why that's not the case at all. But past that, the NPCs are really dumb. They're not very smart. Even the hardest ones are just hard because they have stronger Bakugan. The NPCs themselves are just stupid. If you know what you're doing, then you could beat the hardest NPC without trying that hard because they'll just fall flat on their face. And the customization of the game was something I also said that I think definitely needs improvement on. Adding on to that, I think it would be cool that if you fought a specific NPC, you have a chance of like winning part of their clothing, right? So like say Spectra, which I believe is the hardest NPC in the game, if you beat him, you have a chance of winning his mask and being able to wear that. I think that'd be sweet. That'd definitely give me a reason to fight all the NPCs so I could get better player customization. That'd be really awesome. You know, even if it's not direct rewards like HSP or XP, something like that is honestly worth it enough to go fight the other guys at least a few times to get the piece of clothing you want. But because there's nothing like that, again, you just fight the easiest NPC if you want to grind, which I guess does lead into another point. The grinding in the game. It's something that a lot of people talk about. And I'll be completely honest, I didn't want to bring up a different game, but it's not actually that bad of grinding as I thought it was. The only thing that's like pretty bad to grind out is like levels on your Bakugan. That takes a long time, especially considering there's a bug where the XP bar is glitched and doesn't show you how far you actually are. So you never know if you're gonna level up until it just happens. But in terms of the cards and the HSP grinding, it's not that bad. And that's partly to do because of the shop. Like HSP does take a little bit to get a lot of, but if you have a few friends, it doesn't take as long. Grinding with more people actually does typically get you rewards faster and HSP faster. And the shop isn't the hardest to find the cards you need from. Despite there being a lot of cards in the game, you actually find the cards you need more often than not. And there's trading in the game too, so if you really need to, you can just fork over some money, even if it's a little more than what it's worth in the shop, to get the cards you want, which I think is another plus. I said I didn't want to mention another game. The game I'm talking about is Bloxagon. The main reason why I haven't made a video on Bloxagon yet is because the grinding in that game is like kind of crazy. Like I've been playing Bloxagon for I don't know, maybe nearly a month now. I only have two decks complete. I'm doing the same thing in that game where I want a deck in each attribute to try out each one, but it just takes so long. And it's not just the HSP, like the HSP definitely isn't great in Bloxagon compared to the Project. It feels like you get HSP in Project a little faster, even despite the fact that it has dailies and such, but it's the shop. The shop in that game is not fun to deal with. It only rotates hourly, and buying a card doesn't replace the card with something else. So it just means you have to check pretty much every hour, and it takes a very long time to find the things you want. But we're not talking about that game. All I'm trying to say is that I know people have been complaining about the grinding in Baku Project, but it's not the worst I've seen, at least store-wise. The levels definitely do take a very long time, especially if you want to grind it to max. The max Gs that your Bakugan can have in this game is 760, I believe, and that takes just an extreme amount of time. But because the cap's so high as well, I mean, there's a lot of cases where you actually just win most games because you played more than the other player. And that feels like a no-brainer. Yeah, duh, you played it more, you have more experience. But it's not just that. It's the fundamental level of that your Bakugan can be grossly more overpowered than the other Bakugan on the opponent's team because they played less than you. Could be same Bakugan, could be same deck, could be everything, but whoever played more has more levels. And I'm okay with there being like G power caps that are fairly high. Like I guess my main thing is that I wish there was some cap to some Bakugan to balance out how strong their cards are. And not make it to where, you know, if you just grind a whole lot more, you could have like 100 more base Gs than the opponent, you know? Like if there was some kind of cap on each Bakugan to get a certain amount of Gs, then it wouldn't be as bad. Because then if there's a cap, it's not as bad because no matter how much you grind, there is a cap at some point. And hopefully that cap's not too crazy, like 600 Gs or whatever, or 760 what it is now. I'd like it to be more closer to the base starting G powers that a lot of Bakugan start at. I do think that is something that's holding the game back from being something that's more competitive, is just the fact that G power caps are so high that if a player just has so many more hours than you, their Bakugan are just going to be way too powerful for you to beat. But honestly, that's a whole conversation. I know people like the grind. I know people like getting Bakugan to like crazy high levels. But maybe there's like some kind of way to where if you want to 1v1 people, there's like a different mode to where like it'll set your Bakugan at a certain G power depending on what Bakugan it is. So when you fight people, you could just set it to that mode, and now it's even grounds, you know? And now in other matches, if someone wants a ridiculously high G power Bakugan, then they can have that. But then there's still the option of having an even playing field if you want to. You could still play with normal G power with the crazy high cap if you want to, but then, a way to 1v1 someone and have a fair fight, even if they played a lot more than you. Because, like, I do have some Bakugan, they're just way higher Gs than my friend's Bakugan, and we can't really fight fairly, even though, like, I wouldn't consider myself a better project player, because, like, we're both mainly just fucking around and not really focusing on what's optimal in the game. But I would just win because, I played a little bit more than him. So having a way to level out the G powers without needing him to grind all the time would be nice. Anyway, before I go into my last couple of points, I did want to mention something really quickly because it's something I actually noticed and was kind of not confused by, but more surprised by. I do there, like I said before, there's options for 2v2 and 3v3s. I think those game modes are actually where the game is at its like most fun. Like obviously when you have more players in the game, there'll be more scenarios where there's just a lot of back and forth card playing. But when you have your team involved, you need to actually talk about, okay, what would be the more optimal card to play at this moment and save for later. It's not just a one-on-one, well, I'll just match what he's playing until eventually one of us runs out. It's that we all have resources and there's a certain combination that would be more optimal to do, and what would that be? So that extra bit of interaction that you have with your team, it makes the game a lot more fun. I definitely think it's the best way to play the game. One-on-ones are really just a who can stroke themselves off the best. Well, in teams, it's about which team can stroke each other off best. This is a terrible analogy. But in teams, it's about who uses the best combination of resources as an entire group and not just an individual using all the resources and hoping they overpower the opposing side. So yeah, if you have some friends and you want to go fight some other group of people and make decks together, build up strategies, I definitely think that's where the game is the most fun. I actually did have quite a good time, even just against NPCs, with my friends being like, oh, we could put these combination of cards together and that'd be really fucking good. Those moments like that were definitely the highlight of the game for me. But going on to my last couple of points, I think these are the most important for the longevity of the game, if that's something that, people are still fighting for. The first being the bugs. There are just an unimaginable amount of bugs in the game. And look, I'm not a game developer. I'm not claiming to be. So I don't really know like how to fix these bugs or how they come across or how hard it would be to actually make sure that the game is completely ironed out. What I do know though is that the developer for the game is at least competent enough to make a game and be able to find these issues and fix them out. Even if there's no content for the game in a very long time, I do think bare minimum, you should at least fix out some of the bugs that actually break the game. There's some cards in this game that if you play them or if you get them, it just ruins a match you're in, or even worse, your entire character. For instance, there's the card Revive in Baku Project. If you use it, then it crashes the game. For as far as I know, that's been in the game for a very long time. So having a card that is that detrimental is kind of crazy to me. But that's not even the worst example. The worst one is going to be Photon Tail. This card is the fucking Grim Reaper of Baku Project. Literally, they have an emo in the server that is the Photon Tail with a fucking Grim Reaper scythe. If you get this card on your account, it ruins your character. I don't exactly know the full extent of what it does. From what I could tell, it makes it to where you can't make a deck anymore, and if you can't make a deck, you can't play the game. So that means your entire character is completely fucking useless. You have to make a new one, transfer all your stuff from the old one to the new one to be able to be freed from that curse. And that has been in the game for a very long time. That's just crazy to me. Like, okay, I'm not the type of person where I'm like, if you're making a game, you need to put a bunch of time into the game, make sure there's a ton of content, make sure you're constantly working on it, feed the consumers, plug in, make sure they're all nice and full. Especially if it's like a solo developer like it is for Baku Project, at least as far as I know. If something going on with his life where, he just can't work in the game at all, that's completely fine. However, it has been confirmed, or at least as confirmed as it can be from other people, that he is working on the game to some capacity. And I feel like at the bare minimum, if you feel like new content's not coming anytime soon, but you still want to work on the game and make sure people are satisfied, you could at the very least fix these bugs. These bugs have been here for a long time. People talk about these bugs like they're like cryptids, like they're the boogeyman, and they straight up ruin people's experience. Like having your whole character be useless is kind of crazy. So if he is working on the game, he's not completely tied up where he just can't work on it whatsoever, and he is trying to actually focus on the game in some capacity. I do feel like these kind of bugs are something that really need to be addressed. And that leads me to my final point, which is the communication between the developer of the game and its community. Look, I'm no stranger to like the owner of a game or company or franchise like not communicating with its like player base whatsoever. That's not like that surprising. But when I say that, I'm talking about, big companies that feel like they have more bigger problems to focus on than interacting with the community and fixing their problems. This is a solo dev, from what I could tell, that is working on the game, that has a Discord community, that has players that are still interacting with each other, and has mods that constantly take care of the game with whatever problems that it's currently having. And the dev won't even as much as to send a message occasionally on there to at least check in or say whatever progress is happening with the game. I'll say it again. I completely understand if it's something where he's just way too busy with life that he can't work with the game. But there has been enough glimpses that he can, in some way, interact with the community or is working on the game in some capacity to where I feel like there's not really an excuse that he's not doing so. And again, I'm not really saying that like he owes the players anything or something, he's not like obligated to give more to the community. Like they already got their key for the game, or they're getting their keys for the money that they're paying, and they are able to play the game, which is what he promised. But there have been sneak peeks of stuff that he's been working on, and if he is planning on continuing the game, it feels weird that he's not communicating with the actual people that are playing it whatsoever. And it's talking through those other people that he also barely talks to. As far as I know, they're pretty much in the dark as much as the community is. And from what I could tell, and take this with like a grain of salt, I don't entirely know what I'm talking about. This is just something that I'm seeing as someone who had just recently started playing the game and is seeing what the community looks like. The only times that the dev does something for the game is to restock on keys to give to people who purchase the game. And that's the only interaction he really does with the community, and that's not really interaction. That's just giving them what they paid for. So if he could do that to ensure that he's still getting money from people paying to play the game, then surely he's able to at least check in with the community and being like, "Hey, I'm doing this," or "Hey, I want to work on the game, but I'm very busy. Hope you all are doing good," or just something similar to that, or just talking about his plans in general for the game. Because there's a lot of people who are just losing hope completely. And that is definitely not what you want to see in a community. And I mean, I don't want to go this far, but like, he's making a lot of money from the game. Like, you could do some basic math going on the Patreon, and you could see he's like getting a pretty healthy amount of money regularly from the game. Of course, it's not enough to like completely sustain him, and like if he has a family as well, but it's enough money to where I feel like the people who are paying him deserve some sort of communication with the person they're giving money to. I mean, like, that's the whole reason people hate taxes, right? They pay a bunch of money to people that they don't really know or that don't exactly seem to care about them, and they're pissed about it. I mean, of course, at least in this case, they're getting a game, but it's a game that a lot of people really enjoy and want to see more from, and are willing to pay money to see more from eventually as well. Maybe I'm talking a bit out of line here. Again, I don't know his situation. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know anything about him personally. But with what's publicly available, I can infer that there's enough leeway in his life that would at least let him somewhat talk to the community, somewhat let them know what's going on, somewhat see what's happening, and somewhat potentially, perchance, give them a bit of hope that the game that they really like and are willing to pay for will eventually see some new life brought into it. And like at the bare minimum, fix the bugs. You know, like even if you're like, all right, sorry guys, I can't be bothered. If the servers will still be open, you can still play it. I just can't work on it anymore. Just at least fix the bugs. You know, the game breaking ones at least. These feel the most egregious. Honestly, as stupid as it sounds, I've been kind of tempted to make a glitch compilation for the game because there's just that many absurd glitches I found in the game. But I don't know. I don't exactly want that to come across as mean-spirited because a lot of the glitches really are just, funny, haha, they're kind of stupid, whatever kind of glitches. But the ones that aren't funny, haha, and actually completely ruin the experience aren't that great, and I would like to see those be fixed at least. My bottom line is that no matter all the, things I don't enjoy about the game or the things that I think need more polish, none of these are completely unsalvageable. All it takes is the developer being able to actually listen to what the community has been complaining about, because like a lot of these complaints aren't just from me and like personal opinions. A lot of the community that have been playing for way longer than me hold the same opinion. So if he's able to actually listen to that, fix some things up, and polish the game around, make sure there's not as many game-breaking bugs, then I think the game could be in a very good state. And even if that takes a very long time, even if it takes another year until that happens, just some kind of communication goes a very, very long way. That's like the one thing I've kind of been completely taken aback from is just that the game's been completely like radio silent from the developer for this long. Like the no content thing, I've seen communities live with no content for years. Hell, I was a huge fan of fucking Gen 2 and the TCG, and that went on for longer than it probably should have, even if it was just small pockets. But with this game, it's a developer that we've seen is capable of creating a community for people to play, making a game that people want to play, and overall having the same love for a franchise that everyone else shares. So if he has all of that, I don't see a reason why he can't at least just talk to the community. And again, even if there's not new content, I think the games can be completely fine with just a handful of changes. Sure, it won't be the most balanced thing ever, but it'll be enough to where I think the game could be in a state where anyone can pick up and play and be like, yeah, there's not more content coming, but the content in here is pretty okay. And again, if that's going to be the case, it would be nice if he just came out and say that there's not going to be any more content for the game. I'm trying not to harp on that too much. It just really is the thing that I'm most like baffled by. I've never really done a game review like this before. I mean, I've done product reviews for Bakugan and stuff, so I don't know if there's like a scale I should go on or not. I feel like scales are kind of arbitrary because, if I do a number scale, people might see a number and not like, you don't get the full picture with that. So I don't really feel like doing like anything like that. I guess my final verdict would be, is this a game that I would recommend to a Bakugan fan? Generally, yes. And for $5, if you're a big fan of the anime, at least, there's some enjoyment you'll find from that. And even if you didn't really watch the anime, like I didn't watch season two, but I can still enjoy the NB guys. There's still enough fun to be had there. It's of course not perfect. There's some problems with it, but I don't think all those problems means that it's just going to be a completely awful experience for any Bakugan fan that tries it out. I guess it more depends what kind of Bakugan fan you are. If you're a big fan of the anime, yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. If you're someone that, like me, that like, you've seen the anime and but you kind of liked how the IRL game was with rolling and stuff, there's might be some problems there, but I mean, I think it's kind of different for me. I'm just a Bakugan fan in general, I again, I do kind of wish there was some more physicality rolling an element to the toys themselves. But, Bakugan's cool. I'm not going to pretend like it's the only thing I like about it. I have already said before, I don't know if this is a game I would play for a very, very, very long time. I'll try, I definitely would not mind trying it out again. I mean, even if, like, even excluding, like, any future updates that might happen or might not happen, I'd be open to making videos on it if there's like something people want to see. If people do want to see that glitch compilation, I'll very much do it. If people want to see me do PvP with some friends, I could do that as well. It's definitely not a game I would explicitly say I dislike. Like, there's enough elements that I said I didn't like to make it sound like I might not like the game as a whole. That's not entirely true. I feel like my opinion on the game is just way more complicated than being able to just say one blanket statement. I feel like that's why I had to say this entire video length of reasoning and reasons why I dislike or like certain parts of the game. And I think that's fine. I think being critical of a game, even if it's a fan game, is fine, even if it's a franchise that, has been long forgotten and you wish was still alive. Like, just because it is Bakugan, I could definitely still see there's flaws with it. I mean, I see that with official product. Like, season one was fun. I like it, but it's a piece of dog shit. So I think it's completely fair to see a Bakugan game like this and be like, yeah, it's cool, but I do have a few problems with it. Again, if you don't have problems with it, if you like it, keep playing it. I'm not gonna stop you. This is purely just my opinion as someone who's been a Bakugan fan for a very long time. And to be honest, I'd even say I'd want to see the game thrive. I mean, that's what any true fan wants, right? If there's a way for people to enjoy the franchise, I'd want it to do good. I have no reason to come in and say negative things about a game just for fun, I get nothing from that. I'm mainly saying all these disclaimer things because I know there's a lot of die-hard Baku Project fans, and I'm honestly somewhat worried that me coming here and saying a few problems I have with the game might start some type of Winter Soldier episode in them and make them defend the game like crazy. Like, you could like the game, and people could dislike certain aspects of the game. I think that's completely fine. But I'm probably just worrying about nothing, honestly. The game has been stagnant. I don't know if those people still exist. I just remembered when the game first came out, no one could stop talking about it and would constantly tell me to play it, even though I just straight up couldn't at the time. So now it's kind of interesting that I could come back and give a review now that all of that hype died down, and hopefully not get flamed for saying my opinion. Who knows? It's the internet. But yeah, I pretty much said everything I need to say about the game. If you want to see me play Baku Project more, I can make more videos on it. I'm not against it again. I mean, it honestly, the last video I made was super easy to make. And again, like, the franchise is super dead. Any way to enjoy or make Bakugan content is something I will immediately jump on. Speaking of which, other fan games, if you want to see me play those games, just let me know. I definitely will, and already have. I just don't know if I'll make a review like this. And I said my reasoning already, so I don't need to say it again. Unless you weren't listening, and if you weren't, well, watch the video again. I think that helps with the algorithm or whatever. Okay, yeah, this has definitely been going on for way too long. I'll just end it with a clip of my character doing a Fortnite emote, I guess, since that's something you could do in the game.